After a series of inexplicable medical misdiagnoses, my distant cousin arrived to act as my medical proxy, suggesting I update my will to name her as the sole guardian of my special needs son. I realized she was subtly tampering with my medication. I agreed to the guardianship, then collapsed from a sudden illness, confining myself to bed and communicating only through written notes. What she didn't see was the nanny camera, disguised as a ceramic bird installed directly over the medicine cabinet, recording her nightly visits. My life is built around Leo, my 9-year-old son with severe nonverbal autism. His care requires absolute precision and vigilance. After my husband Thomas passed away last year, my already demanding schedule became a high stakes balancing act. The trouble started subtly, yet persistently about 6 weeks ago. Inexplicable bouts of dizziness, crushing fatigue, and a cognitive fog that made concentrating on Leo's complex care plans nearly impossible. My own doctor suggested grief and stress, but I knew the difference between emotional burnout and systemic suppression. I suspected Clara. Clara is my distant cousin, a registered nurse who insisted on moving to our home in suburban Virginia, claiming she wanted to support family during your difficult transition. She projected an image of professional competence, but her eyes held a cold, analytical gleam. Since her arrival, she had taken over coordinating my medication schedule, urging me to take a step back due to my obvious stress. The proposal. One afternoon, as I lay on the living room sofa feeling the familiar debilitating lethargy settle over me, Clara sat down with a legal-sized clipboard. "Eleanor," she said, her voice smooth and unsettlingly calm, "I have to be frank. Your recent medical episodes are escalating, and Leo, his trust needs protection." She slid a document toward me. It was a drafted amendment to my will, focused entirely on guardianship. "Given your current unpredictable health," she continued, "the court might intervene. I've prepared this. It names me as the sole temporary medical and legal guardian for Leo, should your condition worsen. I'm a medical professional and I'm family. It provides the safest, most stable transition for him." The proposal was the confirmation I needed. She wasn't just worried about my health. She was maneuvering to seize control of Leo's substantial long-term care trust fund. The misdiagnoses were her means. The trust fund was her motive. The decision to surrender. I realized that if I fought her openly, she would simply increase the tampering and get me medically declared incompetent. I had no evidence, only suspicion. I had to play her game. I had to let her think she was winning to give her the confidence to make a fatal mistake. I pushed myself up, feigning utter defeat and profound weariness. You're right, Clara," I stammered, letting my voice crack with manufactured despair. "I'm too tired. I agree to the guardianship. It needs to be secured." Clara's face betrayed a flicker of triumphant avarice before she quickly masked it with concern. "Thank you, Eleanor. You're making the selfless choice." The fake collapse. That evening, I executed the next phase of the plan. I waited until Clara was out of the room, then delivered a dramatic, convincing collapse near the kitchen counter, letting out a cry of pain and confusion. "My head, I can't think. I think I'm having a sudden relapse," I gasped. Clara rushed over, falling perfectly into my trap. She called a doctor she had recently vetted and exaggerated my critical symptoms. The diagnosis was acute stress-related episode requiring immediate strict bed rest and complete communication restriction. "Don't worry, Eleanor," Clara cooed, tucking me into bed. Her voice was falsely reassuring. "I will handle everything. You must only communicate with me through written notes to conserve your strength." I lay there appearing frail, but my mind was clearer than it had been in weeks. My confinement was now the perfect opportunity for her to continue her work, believing I was entirely helpless. The hidden sentinel. Before my collapse, I had prepositioned my one indispensable ally, Maria Leos, primary loyal caregiver. While Clara was downstairs calling her lawyer, Maria executed the final step. She took a small, elegant ceramic bird figurine that usually sat on the kitchen windowsill and placed it on the top shelf of the medicine cabinet in the pantry, directly overlooking my daily pillboxes. The bird contained a high-resolution, low-light Nanny camera with a tiny integrated microphone. It was inconspicuous, a piece of charming clutter. Clara would never notice it. I had given Clara the illusion of total control. Now I waited for the camera to record the undeniable truth of her crime. The days following my dramatic collapse were agonizing. Confined to bed, I maintained the illusion of a woman ravaged by sudden illness, communicating only through shaky, terse notes to Clara and to Maria. This isolation was my strategy. It signaled total surrender to Clara, giving her the psychological safety she needed to execute her plan carelessly. Clara's total control. Clara now moved through the house like its undisputed ruler. She controlled my diet, the temperature of the room, and most crucially, the medication schedule. She would sweep into my room, check my pulse, and speak in clipped professional tones about the critical need to finalize the guardianship papers before the court questioned my prolonged incapacitation. My notes to her were weak, reinforcing her narrative: need to sign guardianship, just need one more day of rest. Maria handles Leo. Maria, acting the perfect role of the silent, efficient housekeeper, was my eyes and ears. Our communication was limited to coded messages slipped under my meal tray, updating me on Clara's movements, and most importantly, the camera status. The message I craved arrived on the third afternoon code from Maria: the Sentinel is singing. The camera was actively recording and transmitting data to a secure external server. The first capture. The pivotal moment arrived on Wednesday night. Maria ensured her scheduled evening check on Leo took place precisely when Clara was alone in the kitchen near the medicine cabinet. Later that evening, Maria slipped a tiny encrypted tablet under my pillow. My hands trembled not from illness, but from adrenaline as I accessed the secured video feed from the ceramic bird. The footage was chillingly clear, despite the low kitchen light. Clara entered the frame, her face relaxed into a look of private, cold satisfaction. She wasn't just counting my pills. She was manipulating them. She first opened the bottle containing my anti-seizure medication, a critical drug for managing a residual effect of an old head injury. This drug, if incorrectly dosed, induces severe fatigue and mental fog, exactly matching my symptoms. She then picked up my daily multivitamin bottle. Using a fine surgical tool retrieved from her nurse's kit, she meticulously scraped a small, precise amount of the powerful anti-seizure drug powder and delicately dusted it into the multivitamin bottle. She replaced the cap and shook the bottle gently to mix the contaminants. Her intent was unmistakable. She was slowly poisoning me using the non-critical multivitamin as the delivery vehicle, ensuring my cognitive function remained suppressed, validating her need to be the guardian. She then placed 2 pills on the bedside tray, the tainted multivitamin and the opened, now underdosed anti-seizure capsule, before walking back to my room with a sickly sweet smile. Securing the evidence. The video was the unimpeachable proof of medical battery and criminal intent. I had the crime recorded, time-stamped, and linked directly to her motive. I immediately wrote a shaky note to Maria: contact my attorney, Elias Vance. Use the secure line and the code phrase: the bird has a full nest. Secure the samples. My next task was survival. I waited until Clara was out of the room. Using the tip of a sewing needle, I painstakingly pierced the contaminated multivitamin and emptied its contents into a secure labeled baggie Maria had left hidden. I replaced the pill with a clean one from my backup supply and ensured I took the correct dosage of the anti-seizure medication, replacing the underdosed capsule with a clean one. I would maintain the illusion of illness and the slow collapse, but internally I was stabilizing. The evidence was sealed, the lawyer was mobilized, and the ceramic sentinel continued its silent watch. My priority, after stabilizing my medication and securing the video evidence, was to get the materials into the hands of my lawyer, Elias Vance. Elias was a corporate attorney, not a criminal one, but he managed Leo's trust and knew the financial magnitude of Clara's target. The cover story. Getting out of the house was a challenge. Clara had me under virtual house arrest, insisting any external activity would be detrimental to my fragile health. Maria was my only solution. Ms. Clara, Maria announced one morning, standing firm in the doorway. Eleanor has a required follow-up with her primary physician regarding her seizure medication stability. It's urgent and confidential. Clara bristled, furious at the unexpected breach of her control. I am her medical proxy. I must attend. The physician specifically requested no new parties, Ms. Clara, Maria replied smoothly, sticking to the story we devised. It's about historical drug tolerances. I will drive. Clara couldn't risk refusing a necessary medical appointment without exposing her motive. She grudgingly let us go. Maria drove me not to my doctor, but to a discreet, prearranged office park near the airport. The briefing. Inside the secured room, I dropped the mask. I was tired but cognitively sharp. Elias, a reserved man, usually focused on balance sheets, was stunned when I handed him the flash drive and the small sealed bag containing the tainted pills. This is not a medical episode, Elias, I stated, placing the evidence on the desk. This is attempted poisoning. Clara is subtly tampering with my anti-seizure medication, using the multivitamin as a Trojan horse. She is engineering my cognitive decline to steal Leo's trust fund through a guardianship petition. Elias watched the ceramic bird footage twice. His face, usually impassive, hardened with cold disbelief as he saw Clara's calculated movements. This is conclusive proof of medical battery and criminal conspiracy, Elias confirmed, his voice low. We will send these pills for immediate independent forensic toxicology analysis. That, coupled with this video, is enough for an arrest warrant. The counter trap. We can't move yet, I insisted. Her entire goal is the guardianship. She has the documents ready. If we arrest her now, she'll destroy them and we lose the leverage of the financial fraud. We need to catch her in the act of filing the fraudulent papers. My plan was simple and precise. I need two things, Elias. First, an emergency asset freeze and temporary restraining order TRO on Leo's trust. The order must be pre-signed by a friendly judge triggered automatically the instant Clara's name appears on the court registry as the prospective guardian. Elias nodded, recognizing the elegance of the financial trap. A poison pill for her own scheme. The moment she files the money becomes untouchable. Second, I need that toxicology report back in a matter of days. Once the freeze is triggered, the criminal warrant follows immediately. The final bait. I returned home leaning heavily on Maria, portraying a woman completely exhausted by the simple trip. Clara was waiting clipboard in hand. That was unnecessary stress, Eleanor. She scolded, all pretense of compassion gone. We must finalize this. The court is awaiting documentation of my control. She slid the guardianship petition toward me. I picked up the pen, my hand shaking visibly, focusing on making my signature look weak, faded, and barely legible, exactly what she expected from a failing woman. I pushed the clipboard back. It's signed, Clara. I whispered, my voice thick with feigned fatigue. Take it. File it. I can't fight anymore. Clara snatched the documents, her face alight with an undisguised, hungry triumph. She had the prize. She had the key to Leo's fortune. She had no idea that the moment she walked into that courthouse tomorrow, she wouldn't be opening a vault, she would be activating a time bomb. The ceramic bird had recorded the crime, and now the legal system was primed to deliver the consequences. Clara was unable to contain her excitement. After I signed the guardianship papers, she spent the evening making frantic, hushed phone calls from the dining room, clearly coordinating with her own lawyer to expedite the process. Her arrogance was complete. She believed her final hurdle, my signature, was cleared. The filing. I woke before dawn, completely stable and alert, having received my correct medication dosage. Maria, my invaluable ally, confirmed Clara's movements. She left at 7:00 a.m. Eleanor. Straight to the courthouse. Maria reported, bringing me a secure phone. I immediately called Elias Vance. She's filed it. I confirmed, my voice steady. The contingency is active. Understood, Eleanor, Elias replied. The moment the petition is logged into the court system, the trigger is pulled. The bank will receive the temporary restraining order TRO on Leo's trust fund within the hour. She will have filed the guardianship and found the assets immediately frozen. The plan was a marvel of legal strategy use, Clara's own action, the filing of the fraudulent papers as the mechanism to block her from accessing the wealth she coveted. The trap snaps. Clara, brimming with confidence, arrived at the court and submitted the notarized guardianship petition, cementing her name on the public record as Leo's prospective, medically approved guardian. Exactly 50 minutes later, she placed a triumphant private call to the bank managing Leo's significant trust fund. She presented her name and claimed the guardianship petition granted her immediate oversight to authorize a large investment transfer, a clear preliminary move to access liquid funds. The bank manager's response, relayed to me later by Elias, was stunningly effective. We regret to inform you, Ms. Vance, the manager stated, that all accounts associated with the Leo Vance Trust are now under an emergency federal asset freeze pursuant to a temporary restraining order granted this morning by Judge Harrison. All transactions and investment decisions are suspended pending judicial review of the petition. Clara's victory evaporated into legal shock. The trust, the entire object of her calculated abuse, was now officially and instantly out of her reach. She had successfully installed herself as the guardian of an empty vault. The desperate return. Clara didn't return home until late afternoon. She didn't bother with the facade of care. Her face was contorted with cold fury and panic. She bypassed my bedroom entirely and immediately confronted Maria in the kitchen. Did anyone have access to Eleanor's phone? Did anyone speak to her lawyer? She demanded, her voice low and menacing. Maria, the picture of placid subservience, shook her head. No, Ms. Vance. Eleanor has been resting. Only the food delivery was made this morning. Clara knew she had been countered, but the incapacitated patient in the bedroom couldn't possibly have orchestrated a sophisticated federal asset freeze. Her confusion deepened her frustration. Finally, she stormed into my room, where I lay perfectly still, feigning deep, drug-induced sleep. She stood over my bed, her breath shallow and quick with rage. You think you won, Eleanor? She hissed under her breath, believing I couldn't hear. You think some lawyer's loophole can stop this? I am your guardian. I have the signed papers. I will still control your access to your own medication, and I will still testify to the court that you are unfit. I kept my breathing steady, allowing her to vent her final desperate threat. Her threat about the medication only confirmed the imminent danger of letting her remain in the house. The warrant. My secure phone vibrated quietly under the pillow. It was Elias. The toxicology report is officially back, Eleanor, he said, skipping any pleasantries. The pills are positive for the tampering. The asset freeze has contained the money, and her actions in court today confirmed her criminal intent. It's time, I stated, my voice barely a whisper. The threat is now physical. We move for the arrest. The state prosecutor is already preparing the warrant, Elias confirmed. Based on the video, the tox report, and the documented pattern of abuse, the police will be at your house before the end of the day. You and Leo need to be ready for immediate extraction. I looked toward the kitchen where the ceramic bird had silently recorded the truth. Clara thought she was my caretaker. She had simply been the star of her own televised arrest. The state prosecutor and Elias agreed that executing the arrest while I was still in the house was too risky given Clara's documented aggression and my vulnerability. The extraction of Leo and me needed to happen under the guise of our normal routine. The extraction. Early the next morning, Maria, acting completely naturally, informed Clara that she was taking Leo for his essential weekly therapy session at the rehabilitation center, a trip Clara never accompanied us on. Clara, still consumed by the legal setback and frantically trying to overturn the asset freeze, barely spared us a glance. Be quick about it, she snapped, staring at her laptop, consumed by the financial mess I had created for her. Maria drove Leo and me directly to a secure neutral office suite arranged by Elias. Once safely out of the jurisdiction, I gave Elias the final clearance. The arrest. The police moved swiftly. Plainclothes officers arrived at my home executing the warrant for aggravated assault, medical battery, and conspiracy. Clara was caught entirely by surprise. She was in the estate office attempting to draft a letter to the court when the officers entered. Clara Vance, you are under arrest, the lead detective stated, reading the charges. Clara immediately launched into her rehearsed defense. This is a farce. I am this woman's medical proxy. My cousin Eleanor is severely incapacitated and suffering from paranoia. This is a malicious, delusional accusation. The detective remained impassive. We have reason to believe that the care you were providing involved the felony tampering of medication, Ms. Vance. Clara demanded to see the evidence. The detective calmly pointed toward the kitchen pantry. The evidence is secured, Ms. Vance. It includes all your medications and a piece of video surveillance recovered from the premises. Clara followed them to the kitchen, maintaining her furious denial until the officers presented a sealed evidence bag containing the ceramic bird. The sight of the bird, now labeled as evidence, hit her like a physical blow. Her entire scheme, the silent poisoning, the belief in my absolute vulnerability, the triumph of her imminent guardianship, was tied to that small, innocent-looking object. She realized in that instant that the entire collapse was a ruse and that she had been watched and recorded every night by the very decoration she had ignored. Her face went slack with utter, devastating defeat. The unmasking. Later that day, after Clara was booked and held on high bail, I returned to the house with Elias. Clara's attorney, Mr. Jensen, who had secured a quick bail hearing, arrived shortly after, intending to meet with the fragile client he had read about in the medical reports. Mr. Jensen walked into the living room expecting to find a bedridden, rambling woman communicating with notes. Instead, I stood by the fireplace dressed in a sharp blazer, my hair neat, my posture straight, and my eyes clear and steady. The contrast between the patient he expected and the confident woman he saw was jarring. Mrs. Vance, he stammered, completely nonplussed. My client informs me you are suffering from a debilitating condition. I need to understand this situation. My condition is excellent, counselor. I stated, my voice calm and firm. My cognitive clarity has been fully restored since my medical proxy was removed. But the collapse, the notes, the total incapacitation, he sputtered. That counselor, I explained, walking toward him, was a strategic maneuver. I realized my cousin was tampering with my prescribed medication to induce symptoms of mental incompetence. I feigned the collapse and confined myself to the bedroom specifically to give her the freedom she needed to commit the crime on video. I gestured toward the empty spot on the pantry shelf. The notes were designed to confirm her narrative, providing the optimal environment for her to commit felony assault. She believed she had incapacitated me. Instead, she had merely placed herself in the perfect position to have her crime recorded by a voice-activated nanny camera disguised as a ceramic bird. The color drained from Mr. Jensen's face. He was facing a formidable, intelligent opponent, not a vulnerable victim. He realized the entire case was built on a calculated, ruthlessly executed counter-trap. Your client's actions were those of a criminal counselor, I concluded. My actions were those of a mother protecting her child with evidence. Mr. Jensen, utterly defeated, quietly gathered his briefcase. The time for legal argument would come, but the narrative and the truth were mine. With Clara jailed and the evidence secured, the legal battle shifted to ensuring the separation was permanent and the evidence was scientifically unassailable. I was focused on securing the definitive toxicology report and a lifetime of protection for Leo. The scientific verdict. Elias Vance called me with the official confirmation from the state crime lab. The toxicology report is definitive, Eleanor, Elias confirmed. The samples you secured from the multivitamin bottle showed the presence of lamotrigine, consistent with the tampering seen on the video. Your blood tests from the day of the collapse also confirmed traces of the drug that induced the specific cognitive suppression, proving your symptoms were entirely chemically induced, not psychological. The toxicology report was the final scientific proof that dismantled Clara's entire defense. The video proved she did it. The lab report proved the effect and the intent to cause severe harm. The narrative of my delusion was officially buried beneath forensic science. The state prosecutor is now confident of a conviction on aggravated assault, Elias stated. She will argue that by using a potent prescription drug to chemically incapacitate you, Clara treated the victim as a medical experiment. The protective order. While the criminal case was solidifying, I moved to secure the civil and physical protection of my family. Elias filed a petition for an immediate and permanent restraining order. We appeared before a judge to present the urgency of the situation. I didn't need to speak much. Elias simply presented the video footage of Clara tampering with the medication and the toxicology report. The judge, clearly appalled by the evidence of medical exploitation and familial betrayal, didn't hesitate. Given the defendant's clear and documented intent to incapacitate the petitioner through covert medical means to gain control of a dependent child's assets, the judge announced, this court finds that Ms. Clara Vance poses an extreme and permanent danger. The court grants a permanent protective order. The order was sweeping. Clara was permanently forbidden from initiating any contact with me, Leo, or Maria, and barred from approaching our home, Leo's school, or any therapeutic facilities. Furthermore, the court immediately moved to suspend her nursing license indefinitely pending the outcome of the felony trial. Her career, like her freedom, was over. Restoring the routine. The emotional work of restoring stability for Leo was paramount. The house now felt safe. The silent tension that Clara's presence had brought finally dissipated. We discarded all the remaining medication Clara had touched and replaced the entire stock from a fresh supply secured under a new biometric lock only I could open. Maria and I established a new, highly predictable routine for Leo, emphasizing safety and control. I made a point of sitting with Leo in the kitchen near the empty shelf where the ceramic bird had sat. I gently placed his hands on the spot. Leo, I said softly, using the calm, steady voice he relies on. The bad thing is gone. The person who made Mommy tired is gone. This house is safe, and Mommy is strong. We are safe, and we are strong. Though he couldn't articulate his understanding, the slight decrease in his anxious stimming confirmed that the return to our true secure baseline was working. I looked at the newly secured, tightly managed medicine cabinet. The system was now designed not just for safety, but for uncompromising vigilance. The ceramic bird was gone, held as evidence, but the lesson it taught, that truth is often silent and found only through strategic defense, was now the unwritten policy of my home. The criminal trial of Clara Vance for aggravated assault and medical battery concluded swiftly. The prosecution's evidence was unassailable, combining the definitive video of the tampering with the forensic toxicology report confirming the chemical assault. The conviction and sentence. The jury deliberation was remarkably shortless than 2 hours. I stood in the courtroom, Elias Vance by my side, as the verdict was read. Clara, gaunt and defeated, stood before the judge. On the charge of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon medical battery, we find the defendant guilty. The guilt was absolute. The woman who had sought to steal my child's future by feigning compassion was exposed as a common criminal. At the sentencing hearing, the judge did not mince words. He emphasized the profound betrayal of trust, the calculated targeting of a vulnerable victim, and the use of medical expertise to commit harm. Clara was sentenced to 15 years in state prison. The court also mandated full restitution for all my legal fees and medical expenses, ensuring her financial ruin was complete. Her plea for leniency was ignored. The image of the ceramic bird silently recording her malice was the true voice in the courtroom. The end of the shadow. A few days after the sentencing, the police department released the evidence back to Elias. Among the files and lab reports was the tiny, unassuming ceramic bird. I held the figurine in my hand. It was light, cool, and utterly innocent looking. It was the witness, the hero, and the symbol of my liberation. It had forced Clara's crime into the light when her lie was strongest. I walked to the kitchen and placed the ceramic bird on the mantelpiece, not near the medicine cabinet, but in a prominent sunny spot. It was no longer a hidden sentinel. It was a visible reminder of my strength. The final piece. My life with Leo returned to a profound, deep stability. I restructured Leo's trust, making it impenetrable. The funds that Clara sought to exploit were now secured in a highly protected, unassailable financial framework. One evening, I sat in the living room watching Leo play quietly. Maria came in, preparing to leave for the night. I still think of the risk you took, Eleanor, Maria murmured softly. To lie like that, to pretend to be broken. It took so much courage. It took strategy, Maria, I corrected, looking at the ceramic bird. Clara thought the world was ruled by emotion and manipulation. I knew it was ruled by facts and evidence. I had to become the evidence collector. I had to turn the role of the helpless victim into the role of the perfect spy. I looked at Leo, whose world was now safe, predictable, and fully protected. She wanted to prove I was unfit to protect him. I proved I was willing to sacrifice my own immediate safety, my own sanity, to get the absolute proof needed to secure his future forever. The medical misdiagnoses were gone. The confusion was gone. The toxic presence was gone. I was healed, stable, and immeasurably strong. The peace in my house was not accidental. It was earned, meticulously secured, and defended by a lie that revealed a fatal truth. The quiet of the evening settled around us, a sound more valuable than any inheritance.